Imagine, for a moment, that you are not a separate being trying to win affection, but a note within a vast and eternal symphony, unfolding not with force, but with rhythm. In this dance of presence and absence, longing and fulfillment, what if being missed is not something we cause, but something we allow? By aligning with the flow of our truest self, we often fear silence, mistaking it for disconnection. But silence, like the pause between musical notes, gives meaning to the sound. It is not emptiness, but spaciousness. Where thoughts of us may echo louder than words ever could, the universe never rushes. Stars are born in darkness. Love, too, ripens in unseen moments. To stay on someone's mind is not to occupy space forcefully, but to become unforgettable by how we resonate with their soul. And so, let us remember, you were never meant to chase the wind, only to move with it as part of its divine choreography. Let's talk about something we often overlook, the echo. Not the noise, not the hustle, not the overthinking, but the quiet, almost invisible residue we leave behind in someone's mind. You see, most people believe that if you want to stay on a man's mind, you have to do something. Send that perfect message, always be around, show up in just the right way. But what if it's not about doing more, but becoming more attuned to what lingers after you've left the room? Let's go deeper with this. We live in a culture that's obsessed with immediacy. We want to be remembered right now. We want a response now. We want reassurance now. But when you're constantly trying to be remembered, you end up becoming forgettable. Because noise, by nature, fades fast. It shouts, it demands, and then it's gone. But an echo stays. It haunts in the best way. It's subtle, it's spacious, and it's powerful. It lives in the quiet moments. When he's driving alone, or brushing his teeth, or lying in bed, staring at the ceiling. You're not texting, you're not calling, you're not performing, and yet, somehow, there you are, in his mind. Why? Because you didn't try to fill every space. You left space on purpose. That's the shift I want you to make. We think connection is created through constant interaction, but true connection is built through energy. Through how you make someone feel, not how often you show up. When you're deeply present in a moment, when you're truly listening, when you're being fully yourself. Not trying to impress or persuade or manage someone's perception. You create an emotional imprint. It's like music. The notes are beautiful, but it's the silence between the notes that gives the melody its shape. Without that space, it's just noise. So when you step away, you allow that energy to expand. You allow his mind to replay what just happened. You give him room to miss you, and let me tell you something. It is in that pause, in that absence, that desire is born. Now, this doesn't mean you disappear or play some manipulative game. This is not about withdrawal out of fear or control. This is about trust, trusting your worth, trusting your impact, trusting that you don't need to be loud to be unforgettable. Have you ever met someone who just carried themselves with such quiet confidence that you couldn't stop thinking about them? It wasn't what they said. It wasn't even what they did. It was who they were being in your presence. That's the echo I'm talking about. It's not created through effort. It's created through alignment. With your truth, with your self-respect, with your stillness. And here's where it gets really interesting. When you become that person who doesn't chase, doesn't beg, doesn't need constant validation. Your energy shifts, people feel it, men feel it, and whether they're conscious of it or not, they start to remember you in ways they can't explain. Because you weren't trying to force a moment. You were simply in it, fully, and that's rare, and rare is unforgettable. Sometimes we think we've been forgotten just because we can't see the proof. But the most powerful impressions happen in silence. In absence, in the sacred space you don't fill, that's where you become unforgettable. Not as an act, not as a performance, but as a presence that can't be replicated. So the next time you're tempted to send that extra text, to explain yourself, to keep the conversation going just to avoid that discomfort of space, pause, Lean into the silence, trust what you've already planted, because the echo of your presence, when it's rooted in authenticity, not need, will do the talking for you long after you've gone quiet. And here's the truth you need to take with you. You don't need to chase what you already awaken. Let's get something straight. You are not on this planet to orbit someone else's world. And yet, we've all been there. You meet someone, you feel that spark, and suddenly, without even realizing it, you start editing yourself. You pull back parts of who you are. You sideline your dreams. You shift your rhythm to match theirs. And before you know it, your center of gravity isn't inside you anymore. It's in him. Now listen, we're not here to judge that. It's human, it's natural, connection is powerful, but if you really want to stay on his mind, not just today, but deeply, lastingly, you have to become magnetic, and magnetism doesn't come from focusing on him. It comes from cultivating your own inner world. Let me say that again. You become unforgettable not by chasing someone else's attention, but by becoming so alive in your own world, so connected to your own purpose, that they can't help but feel pulled toward you. You ever meet someone who's just lit up from within? Doesn't matter what they're doing. Maybe they're starting a new project, diving into a book, learning something, chasing their goals. They've got this spark, this quiet fire, and without trying, they become compelling. You want to be around them. You want to understand what fuels them. That's what makes people memorable, not because they're loud, not because they're perfect, but because they're present, they've rooted into themselves. And here's the truth. When you're deeply invested in your own life, your energy shifts. You stop coming from a place of need and you start coming from a place of purpose. That energy is incredibly attractive. It creates a pull, not a push. And let's be real. People remember what pulls them in more than what pressures them to stay. Let's zoom in a little further. When you're fully immersed in your life, when you're making time for your passions, when you're surrounding yourself with people who inspire you, when you're learning, growing, moving, something interesting happens. You stop worrying so much about how to make someone think about you, and you naturally become someone worth thinking about. It's not about pretending not to care. It's about actually caring deeply about your own growth, about your peace, about your joy. Because here's what happens. When a man sees that you have a world of your own that's rich and beautiful and full of meaning, he doesn't just see you as someone interesting. He sees you as someone essential, and that's the shift. When you don't make someone else the sun in your sky, you become the sun in your own, and he feels that warmth. He notices when you light up about your passions. He remembers how you talk about your goals. He's intrigued by the way you hold yourself, not like someone waiting to be chosen, but like someone who already chose herself. Now, let me be real with you. It's not always easy, especially when you're emotionally invested in someone. Especially when you're craving that message or that call. But in those moments, you have a choice. You can obsess over what's not happening, or you can return to your own path. You can spiral, or you can create. You can cling, or you can expand. And expansion, that's what stays with people. That's what makes them think, wow, she's not waiting around for me. She's moving, she's growing, she's becoming. That's not just attractive, it's unforgettable. You weren't put here to be anyone's background character. You're the main character of your own damn life. When you start showing up that way, when you start living with that kind of clarity and self-respect, people notice. They feel it, even in your absence, especially in your absence. So if you want to stay on his mind, don't lose yourself in the thought of him. Get so lost in the building of your own life that he has no choice but to notice. And when he does, he won't just think of you. He'll wonder about you. He'll miss you. He'll feel that pull. Because your energy is no longer reaching toward him. It's radiating from within you. Here's the line you need to walk away with. The more you come home to yourself, the harder you are to forget. Let's talk about something most people overlook when it comes to making a lasting impression. The way you leave your mark without even trying. I'm not talking about being the most charming, the most beautiful, the most clever. That stuff fades. People forget what you said. They forget what you wore. But what they never forget, ever, is how you made them feel. That's the real secret to staying on someone's mind. It's not about acting right. It's about leaving a signature of soul. Something authentic, something that resonates, something that sticks with him not because you were perfect, but because you were real. And here's the truth: when you're being fully, unapologetically yourself, when you show up from the inside out, not filtered, not curated, you imprint on people, you become a moment they revisit, a conversation they replay. You might think you're just being you, but to someone else, that moment might be the first time they saw truth reflected back at them. Let's go deeper with this. Every time you interact with someone, you're not just exchanging words. You're creating an experience, a micro story, and most of us, let's be honest, are too focused on managing the reaction instead of owning the energy we bring. We say what we think they want to hear. We adjust ourselves to fit what we imagine they'll like. But when you do that, you become forgettable. Because you're no longer giving them you, you're giving them a version, a copy, a placeholder. But when you speak from the heart, when you're laughing for real, when your eyes light up because you're talking about something that matters to you, or when you ask questions that go beyond the surface, those moments hit different. They create connection, and connection creates memory. Think about it: when someone shares something vulnerable with you, something real, something raw, you remember that, right? Not because it was perfectly worded, but because it was true. That's how we remember people. Not through performance, but through presence. So if you want to be the person who stays on his mind, stop trying to be impressive, be impactful. Speak with intention, be fully there. Let your emotions show. Let your curiosity lead. Be the person who sees the world with wonder, who notices the small things, who makes the moment richer just by being in it. That's the kind of person people can't stop thinking about. And you know what else? Most people aren't used to that. Most people are caught up in pretense. They're guarded, they're careful, they're performing. So when you come along and you're just honest, grounded, lit up from the inside, that's disarming. That's magnetic. That's unforgettable. Here's a simple example. Think about your closest friends, the people who have stayed in your life, or the ones who still cross your mind from years ago. Why? It's not because they were always perfect or always said the right thing. It's because they made you feel something, they left a mark, they were a mirror to some part of you, or they cracked something open in you. That's the kind of presence I'm talking about, and it's not something you fake. It's something you allow. It's what happens when you stop trying to craft a moment and start showing up fully for the one you're in. So the next time you're with him, whether it's a text, a call, or sitting across the table, don't worry about being memorable. Just be honest, be present, be you. That's more than enough, because people forget details, but they remember energy. They remember the spark, the laughter, the way you made them feel seen. And when you do that, when you leave a signature of soul, you don't have to try to stay on his mind. You already are. So if you take nothing else from this moment, take this. Your truth is the most unforgettable thing you'll ever give someone. Let's talk about mystery. And not in that fake, calculated, let me wait 3 hours to text him back kind of way. I'm talking about the real kind. The kind that lives in people who are comfortable leaving space. The kind that doesn't need to over-explain, overshare, or prove a point. The kind that knows enough is enough, and lets the rest unfold naturally. There's something powerful about not filling every silence, about letting the moment breathe. We've become so used to constant connection. Likes, messages, updates, replies, that we've forgotten how magnetic space can be. But if you want to stay on his mind, I'm telling you right now, you don't need to fill every gap. You don't need to give him all the answers. In fact, leaving a little unsaid. Letting there be something to wonder about. That's often what creates the most lasting impression. Now I know what you might be thinking. If I don't say it all, if I don't show him everything, he'll forget me, he'll move on. But that fear, that's not truth. That's just conditioning. We've been taught to believe that more visibility equals more value. But let me ask you something. What do you remember more? The person who never stopped talking, or the person who said one thing that made you stop in your tracks, right? It's not about how much you give. It's about what you leave behind. And here's the truth. Mystery is not about being distant or aloof. It's about being rooted in who you are, rooted in your ability to trust that you don't have to constantly explain or perform to be worthy of someone's attention. Real mystery comes from depth, from knowing that there is more within you than what's visible on the surface, and being okay with not rushing to show it all. There's this quote I love: "The moon doesn't try to be whole all the time, and yet it still controls the tides." That's the energy we're talking about. That's what stays with people. When you embrace mystery, you give others room to lean in. You invite curiosity. You let the story write itself instead of forcing the next scene. And that's powerful because curiosity is what keeps someone coming back. It's what makes them think of you late at night. It's what keeps them wondering, what is it about her? But here's where most people get it wrong. They think mystery means playing games, deliberately withholding, being hot and cold. That's not mystery. That's insecurity with a mask on. Real mystery comes from self-trust, from knowing that you don't need to prove anything, from understanding that your presence, your energy, your truth, they're already enough. Let's take it back to connection for a second. Every connection needs space to breathe. Every relationship needs pauses. Think about music again. What makes it beautiful is not just the notes, but the spaces between the notes, without space, without rhythm, without silence. Music becomes noise. Same thing with relationships. Same thing with attraction. Same thing with memory. You have to resist the urge to overcommunicate just to soothe your own anxiety. You have to learn to sit in that quiet space and trust that your impact already exists, that your energy already landed, that the connection doesn't disappear just because you're not constantly feeding it. In fact, it's usually in the quiet moments, the unexpected pauses, the days when you're not reaching out, the times when you're just living your life, that you become unforgettable. That's when he starts to notice your absence. That's when he starts to miss your presence. That's when he starts thinking about you not because you reminded him, but because you moved him. You want to stay on his mind. Don't always fill the space. Don't give every detail. Don't answer every question before it's asked. Be the kind of person who feels so deeply connected to herself that she's fine with letting things breathe. Let there be questions. Let there be pauses. Let there be moments that stretch. Not because you're playing hard to get, but because you're not afraid of being misunderstood. And when you can do that, when you can leave space with confidence, when you can lean back without shrinking, you become the kind of woman he thinks about long after the conversation ends. Because it's not just what you said, it's what you didn't say, it's what he's still wondering about. So remember this, it's not your presence that keeps you on his mind. It's your absence wrapped in meaning that makes him crave more. Let's get real about something that's not talked about enough. Consistency. Not the robotic, predictable kind. Not the text at the exact same time every morning kind. I'm talking about emotional consistency. The kind of stability that creates safety, curiosity, and yes, real attraction. The kind that makes someone think about you when they least expect it. Because deep down, every person is drawn to what they can trust. Let me explain. We live in a world that's full of whiplash energy. One minute it's hot, the next minute it's ice cold. People ghost, they breadcrumb, they send mixed signals like it's some kind of emotional chess game. And because that's become so normal, most people don't even realize how deeply they crave something different. Something solid, something that feels good not just in the moment, but afterward too. Now think about this. What's more unforgettable? The person who blows hot and cold, or the one who makes you feel grounded, calm, and understood every time you're around them? Let me tell you something. You don't stay on someone's mind by creating confusion. You stay on someone's mind by creating clarity, and clarity comes from emotional consistency. That doesn't mean you're boring. That doesn't mean you have to be the same all the time. What it means is that your energy isn't a roller coaster. You're not reacting to everything. You're not all in one day and ghosting the next. You know who you are, and you show up like it. That kind of steadiness, that's magnetic, that's rare, that's unforgettable. Here's the key: emotional consistency creates safety, and safety doesn't kill attraction. It deepens it. When someone knows that what they're getting from you is real, and it's not dependent on their behavior or your fear, that opens the door to actual connection. You're no longer just a fleeting experience. You become a presence in their life, something they start to count on, something they miss when it's not there, and I'm going to be real with you. It takes a certain level of emotional maturity to be consistent in a world that runs on chaos. It's easy to match someone's energy. It's easy to shut down when you feel unseen. But what's powerful is being rooted in your own energy, regardless of how someone else is showing up, because you're not reacting. You're responding. You're choosing how you show up. And that kind of emotional clarity doesn't just make you memorable. It makes you a whole different category. Let me tell you something else. Consistency is also what makes space for the slow burn. And that's a good thing, because while spark is great, what really stays with us isn't the firework. It's the flame that keeps burning. You want to be that quiet, steady burn in someone's mind. Not the one that flared up fast and disappeared, but the one they keep thinking about when life gets quiet. When you show up with emotional steadiness, you don't have to chase or convince. You don't have to question whether you were enough in that interaction. You know you were, because you weren't performing. You weren't trying to trigger a reaction. You were just being you fully, and that's what lands. That's what lingers. Let's bring it back to this idea of imprinting. Because everything we've talked about in this speech connects. People remember what made them feel seen, what made them feel understood, what made them feel something they couldn't explain. But they also remember what felt solid, what didn't waver, what didn't ask them to guess. And when you bring that level of calm, grounded, emotionally intelligent energy into your conversations, whether it's over text, across the table, or even in your silence, you become the contrast, the breath of fresh air, the steady presence in a world that's full of mixed signals and distractions. You become someone he doesn't just think about. You become someone he trusts, and that trust, that's where the real connection lies. That's what keeps you in his thoughts long after the moment has passed, not because you pushed, not because you performed, but because you made it safe to feel something real. So if you want to stay on his mind, stop trying to surprise him. Start giving him something rare, be the calm in a world full of noise, and he'll never forget the way you made him feel. Let's talk about something that gets overlooked in relationships all the time: your own life. Seriously, your joy, your passions, your growth, your experiences. You want to know one of the most powerful ways to stay on someone's mind? Start living in a way that lights you up, whether they're watching or not. We've all been taught this backwards idea that if you really want to hold someone's attention, you have to give them more of yours. Be more available, be more responsive, pour more energy into the connection. But that's not how attraction actually works. It's not about becoming his world. It's about being fully engaged in yours. That's what's magnetic. That's what people can't stop thinking about. The person who's lit from within. You don't stay on someone's mind by orbiting around them. You stay on their mind when they realize you've got a gravity of your own, a life that's rich and textured and meaningful, with or without their attention. Because here's the truth. When you're genuinely invested in your own journey, you naturally create intrigue. You radiate purpose. You become someone worth noticing, not because you're chasing attention, but because you're focused on becoming. And let me just say this loud for the people in the back. You do not have to shrink yourself to be loved. You don't have to wait around for the message to come through. for the next plan to be made, for the next breadcrumb of affection. The second you start building your life with both hands, pouring energy into the things that make you feel alive, you shift the dynamic, you stop waiting, you stop wondering, and without even realizing it, you become the kind of woman who doesn't just get attention. She holds it. Because people are drawn to people who are in motion, people who are expanding, people who aren't afraid to keep growing, even when love is on the table. You show someone that you're not frozen in place, that your life isn't on pause until they figure out how they feel. And trust me, that is so much more compelling than constantly proving your worth through effort. Let's get even more honest. Sometimes when we like someone, we subtly start dimming our light. Not because we're weak, but because we think it'll make the connection stronger. We skip the gym, we delay the project. We stop saying yes to our own life just in case they text or call or want to see us. And here's the kicker. The moment we do that, we stop being the person they were originally drawn to, because that version of you, the one who had plans, who had things to say, who had her own sense of direction, that's the version that made an impact. That's the version that turned heads. That's the version that stays on someone's mind, not the one who started waiting, not the one who put herself second. So if you want to be unforgettable, you have to make yourself your own priority. That doesn't mean you don't care. That doesn't mean you pull away to play games. It means your life is your canvas, and no one else gets to hold the brush. You want to learn a language? Do it. You want to travel? Start something new. Say yes to experiences that scare you a little. Go. The more you grow, the more you glow. And I don't say that to be cute. I mean it literally. Your energy changes when you're doing things that feed your spirit. You become lighter, more open, more magnetic. And when someone sees you in that space, fully alive, fully grounded, it does something. It sticks with them. And don't be surprised if they start reaching out more, thinking about you more, wondering what you're doing, who you're with, where that light is coming from. That's not a coincidence. That's the effect of a woman who is living in alignment, a woman who is not waiting to be chosen, because she's already chosen herself. So stop shrinking, stop waiting, stop apologizing for wanting more. You don't have to be loud. You just have to be whole, because the most unforgettable thing about you will never be how much you loved him. It'll be how fully you lived while doing it.